You're watching Cape Media News, brought to you by Cape Media Center.
Tonight on Cape Media News, Chatham, Harwich, and Yarmouth election results.
Plus, a busy week for emergency services. And later, a recap of this week in sports.
These stories and more are coming up next on Cape Media News. Good evening and welcome to Cape Media News, your source for hyper-local news that matters. I'm Suzanne Tenaire.
And I'm Jamie Horton. The towns of Chatham, Harwich, and Yarmouth held elections this past week, and News Director Mitch Sock has the details.
Voters across Chatham, Harwich, and Yarmouth have weighed in on new leadership and key policy questions. While some results remain unofficial, most contests are now certified, and here's where things stand. In Chatham, voter turnout was 1,565 ballots, about 26% of registered voters. Voters filled 2 select board seats. Stuart Smith finished first with 1,019 votes. Incumbent Jeffrey Dykins held his seat, coming in second with 752. Mike Schell and Brian Phillips trailed with 573 and 331 votes, respectively. Stephen Duvall, a declared write-in, secured a seat on the Monomoy School Committee with 122 votes. Catherine Nickerson was elected to the Housing Authority with 1,084 votes. Voters also weighed in on 2 significant ballot questions. Question 1 asked whether the town should exempt wastewater borrowing from Proposition 2.5 limits, authorizing funds for designing, constructing, and maintaining wastewater infrastructure. That measure passed decisively with 1,057 yes votes and 350 no. Question 2 was a non-binding advisory asking town officials to push state leaders to prevent Holtec from releasing airborne radioactive and chemically contaminated pollutants over Cape Cod Bay. It passed with 1,278 voting yes and just 164 opposed. In Harwich, 2,096 ballots were cast, representing roughly 21% of the town's registered voters. Anita Doucette led the select board race with 1,225 votes, followed closely by Mark Kelleher at 1,170. Catherine McManus came up just short with 1,115. Town Clerk Emily Mitchell was re-elected with 1,852 votes. Brian Edwards narrowly won the Monomoy School Committee seat by just 13 votes, 761 to Anne Marie Varella's 748. Elizabeth Harder retained her seat on the Housing Authority with 1,548 votes. And all 6 ballot questions passed, including the non-binding resolution against radioactive wastewater discharge from the Pilgrim Nuclear Station, which drew 1,731 yes votes and only 233 no votes. And in Yarmouth, 1,932 ballots were cast, representing around 8.5% of the town's registered voters. 3 candidates competed for 2 seats on the select board, with Liz Argo leading the field with 1,174 votes, and Dorcas McGurran secured the second seat with 1,084. Jerry O'Connell was a close third with 950. Thomas Tolatino was elected to the DY School Committee with 1,395 votes. Andrew Krause retained his seat on the Housing Authority with 1,372 votes. 2 ballot questions passed easily. A Proposition 2.5 override for the fire department earned 1,295 yes votes to 590 no, and the non-binding question opposing Holtec's plan to discharge radioactive water into Cape Cod Bay passed overwhelmingly with 1,600 yes to just 266 no. And that's it for the recap of this year's elections. For Cape Media News, I'm Mitch Sock.
Chatham Community Services Department is inviting residents to attend an upcoming public safety seminar at the Chatham Community Center. The seminar, taking place on May 29th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., is designed to educate and empower the community with essential safety knowledge. Emergency preparedness staff, the Council on Aging, and the Chatham Fire and Police Departments will make presentations on topics such as first aid and CPR, fire safety, fraud prevention, fall prevention, critical incident awareness, and more. Pre-registration is encouraged but not required. For more information, contact the Council on Aging at 508-945-5190.
Happy Memorial Day weekend, Cape Cod. The Centerville Memorial Day Parade will begin at 10 a.m. on Monday at the South Congregational Church on Main Street. A police color guard will lead a parade of scout troops, veterans, and Revolutionary War reenactors to Memorial Park prior to the ceremony. A full program of remembrance and recognition will precede the time-honored practice of laying wreaths for each war from the Revolutionary War to Vietnam.
In Hyannis, the largest Memorial Day weekend event in New England kicks off at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday. The 21st annual Troops in the Spotlight ceremony will be held behind the Cape Cod Mall. And in Dennis, head to Liberty Field on Monday morning for their observance ceremony featuring dedications by the Cape and Islands chapter Sons of the American Revolution, the national anthem and taps by DY high school students, and a cemetery tour by the Historical Commission.
Monomoy middle schoolers got their hands dirty last week in the name of ecology. As part of an ongoing collaboration with the Chatham Shellfish Department, students moved immature quahogs from covered nursery beds to Oyster River, where they replenished shellfish beds. The Chatham Shellfish Department is one of many local and state organizations that participate in rehabilitating shellfish populations in our area. Growing nursery stock shellfish and adding them to an environment of wild stock ensures the continual production of shellfish in Chatham waters. In total, the students helped relocate more than 60,000 quahogs.
The Away with Words annual poetry event is coming back to the Hyannis Village Green on May 31st from 1 to 3 p.m. This year's event is in remembrance of George Floyd's murder and the continued struggle for racial justice. The event, hosted by educator and community leader Cheryl Smith, features local spoken word artists who share powerful pieces of poetry and art revolving around the anniversary of Floyd's death.
This event is the conclusion of the 6-month-long community-wide reading initiative called The Big Read Cape Cod, hosted by the Arts and Justice Collective. From October 2024 to May 2025, The Big Read featured 15 programs inspired by award-winning poet Claudia Rankine's Citizen and American Lyric. The Away with Words event will feature organizations like the Making Table, the Healing Circle, and the Potluck Table.
Coming up after the break, sports and more.
Welcome back to Cape Media News.
It's been a busy week for emergency services. Community member B. Sears Media sent us several photos and videos of incidents from several of our towns. Here's a quick recap of a few of these events.
A violent weekend across Cape Cod left one woman facing attempted murder charges, another man hospitalized, and multiple investigations underway across Harwich, Yarmouth, Hyannis, and Dennis. It began shortly after 8 p.m. on Sunday, May 18th. Massachusetts State Police alerted Barnstable County Control that a person had reportedly jumped or fallen from a moving vehicle on Route 6 near mile 82 in Harwich. Emergency crews arriving on the scene found a 33-year-old male lying on the highway with multiple upper body injuries. He was conscious but bleeding heavily. Due to the severity of his injuries, a MedFlight helicopter met the ambulance crew at Cape Cod Tech's football field, a designated emergency landing zone. The man was transported to a Boston area hospital where his condition remains undisclosed. By the next day, a joint statement from the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office and the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office named suspect 26-year-old Tatiana Jacobs of Hyannis. Jacobs, a cadet in the Barnstable County Sheriff's Training Academy and provisional employee, was arrested and charged with armed assault to murder. Authorities linked her to an earlier altercation reported in Barnstable where police responded to a man and a woman fighting in a parking lot. The pair had fled by the time officers had arrived. A damaged vehicle believed to belong to the male victim was found nearby, its windshield smashed and all 4 tires slashed. Jacobs was arraigned in Orleans District Court on May 19th and is being held without bail. She has been placed on unpaid leave by the Sheriff's Office. Hours later, and miles west, a separate violent incident unfolded in Yarmouth. At approximately 11:45 p.m., police responded to a 911 call reporting a shooting near the Willow Street off-ramp on Route 6. Officers located one victim who had moved away from the scene. A search is underway for the vehicle involved, and no arrests or additional details have been released. The following night in Hyannis, Barnstable police and fire crews responded to a different kind of emergency, a structure fire behind a boatyard on Sitt Avenue. 2 large vessels were engulfed in flames. Firefighters had to breach a locked chain-link fence to access the site. An aggressive attack using dual hose lines brought the fire under control within 45 minutes. While a nearby storage tent was badly damaged, no injuries were reported. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. And early Monday morning in Dennis, officers from multiple towns responded to reports of a barricaded person on Donny Way. Police established communication, and the individual eventually exited the residence peacefully, taken into custody without incident. Authorities have not yet disclosed what led to the standoff. From attempted murder charges to active fire and shooting investigations, it's been a volatile week here on Cape Cod. Authorities in all 4 towns are asking anyone with information to come forward. For Cape Media News, I'm Mitch Sock.
The Yarmouth Natural Resources Division has confirmed the fin whale that washed ashore deceased in West Yarmouth earlier this month has now been returned to the sea. The whale was towed more than 50 miles offshore to naturally decompose in the water where it belongs. The team at IFAW attached a tracking buoy to the fin to ensure the whale eventually sinks to the ocean floor.
On the seafloor, the decomposing body of a whale creates its own complex ecosystem that sustains organisms for decades. Creatures that benefit from this phenomenon include sea anemones and urchins, starfish, crabs, clams, oysters, and scallops. The IFAW team noted that at 100,000 pounds and 65 feet in length, this was the largest whale straining the organization has handled. So sea creatures will surely benefit from the carcass for decades to come. In the meantime, scientists are still determining the whale's cause of death.
Chatham Recycles has announced that their outdoor water refill stations are back. The 5 stations are located around town at the Chatham Community Center, Kate Gould Park, Chatham Fish Pier, Oyster Pond Beach, and Eldridge Garage Visitor Center. Fill your reusable water bottles and help reduce the amount of single-use plastic bottles. For more information, visit chathamrecycles.org.
Springtime means it's nesting season. According to Mass Audubon, many of our local turtle species are on the move and seeking nesting sites. Keep an eye out along roadsides, trails, and near bodies of water. Make sure to give them plenty of space. If you see a turtle attempting to cross a roadway, gently pick it up and move it across the street in the direction it was heading. Turtles looking to lay eggs frequently wander into yards, especially those near ponds and lakes. After laying their eggs in the ground and covering them with dirt, the turtle will depart and the eggs will hatch in about 2 or 3 months. Try your best not to disturb them, as many turtle species are endangered. Flag the area to know where to steer clear of and enjoy observing the little turtles as they hatch later in the season. For more information, visit massaudubon.org.
The town of Barnstable has announced that the transfer station swap shop is now open for the season. Every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., weather permitting, bring your used books, dishes, toys, games, tools, sports equipment, and more to the swap shop located towards the back of the transfer station. Transfer station permits or visit fee is required to participate. Check the town website for a full list of acceptable and non-acceptable items. The swap shop will be closed on designated household hazardous waste disposal days. As a reminder, please do not leave anything at the swap shop when it's closed.
And lastly this evening, to Ryan Downs with a recap of This Week in Sports.
Welcome back to the Cape Media News Sports segment. I'm your host and local sports guy, Ryan Downs. It's somehow already the last week of regular season for spring sports. So let's check in on our teams and see who's moving on. But first, earlier this week, before we were washed out by the rain, Cape Media News was able to catch another baseball game at DY. Coming off a tough loss from Friday versus Falmouth, it was also DY's last regular season home game and senior night, as they look to shake the 6-game losing streak and head into the playoffs on a high note. Unfortunately, East Bridgewater had other ideas. They jumped out to an early 2-0 lead in the first inning, and then pushed it to 3-0 in the fourth, and then doubled it, making it 6-0 by the 5th inning. In the bottom of the 5th, DY got a little bit of life pumped back into the game for them, as Hudson Campbell made his way around the bases for an inside-the-park home run to break up the shutout. And DY's lone senior on his night, Connor McGoldrick pitched a complete game, amassing 8 strikeouts and only allowing 3 earned runs. In the 7th inning, he also drove in one of DY's only runs on a stretched-out double and scored himself the next play during an extra base hit that resulted in the end of the game. Although the final score was 6-3, DY finished the game strong with 3 unanswered runs, and they took that momentum with them into their next game as they traveled to Mashpee on Wednesday and snapped their 7-game losing streak with a final score of 5-1. Now let's take a look at our final update for the regular season and some of our teams we've been following. As we know from last week, both Barnstable baseball and softball seasons end this week. Baseball finished with the 53rd ranked team in Division I with a record of 5-15, while softball finished as the 54th ranked team with a record of 4-15. Despite DY's recent 7-game losing streak, they have been ranked as the 11th seed in Division IV, which means they will likely have a home game in the first round of the tournament. They finished with a record of 9-10, and the softball team will not be moving on for the postseason tournament, as they finished the year ranked as the 59th seed in Division III and hold a record of 7-11. And Monomoy is the only one of our schools that will have both their baseball and softball teams moving on to the playoffs. The baseball team comes in as the 21st ranked team in Division IV with a 13-6 record, and the softball team comes in as the 11th ranked team in Division IV with an 18-1 record. Despite experiencing their first loss of the season this past Tuesday, their softball team has risen 7 spots since last week's rankings when they were the 18th seed with a 16-0 record, which doesn't seem like a big change, but greatly impacts their positioning in the soon-to-be-released playoff bracket. And that's it for this week's sports update. Back to you, Jamie and Suzanne.
Thanks, Ryan. The brand new Hyannis Arts and Flea Market opens tomorrow morning.
That's right, Jamie. The new Hyannis Arts Hall is located at 81 Willow Avenue across from Centerville Cleaners. Regular Saturday markets will begin on June 14th, so don't miss your chance to get a special preview before the official opening.
And thank you for joining us this evening. If you have a story you'd like to see covered, send us an email at newstip@capemedia.org.
Stay up to date on all the local happenings by following us on Facebook and YouTube.
And make sure to tune in every Friday at 5:30 for more hyperlocal news that matters on Channel 26, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. For Cape Media News, I'm Jamie Horton.
And I'm Suzanne Tenaire. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.